Love
How's
it.
it
What's up,
going?
man?
Loving life. I'm blessed. How you doing?
Good, good. So hold on a second. I got to play a classic that you sent to me before we even begin. So just check this out for a second.
Oh my goodness. This song is an emotional roller coaster.
Great book. Great book. All right, all right. So we're live or recording. So we're not live, but this is a continuation of kind of the coffee series that we're doing with Going Parabolic, where you know I'm bringing on people who may never do a podcast, never be in a situation like this, but that I think are really, really interesting, great people, people that I would hang out with if I wasn't trapped in the COVID-19 world. So, Eric, I'm glad you're here today.
Wonderful. I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah. So look, you and I have kind of talked over months now about like diet and religion and music and all kinds of cool stuff. So I thought it'd be interesting to explore kind of the concept of you are what you eat. And I want to preface this with I'm going to try to share my screen for a second. Let's see if I can make this work. Hold on. Share. And can you see that?
I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to read this. This is from Dr. Gundry's book, The Plant Paradox. I definitely recommend people read this, but this is interesting. So I have this little snippet out. So most of us have heard of gluten, a protein found in wheat that causes widespread inflammation in the body. Americans spend billions of dollars on gluten-free diets in an effort to protect their health. But what if we've been missing the root of the problem? In the plant paradox, renowned cardiologist Dr. Stephen Gundry reveals that gluten is just one a variety of a common and highly toxic plant-based protein called lectin. Lectins are found not only in grains like wheat, but also in the gluten-free foods most of us commonly regard as healthy, including many fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, and conventional dairy products. These proteins, which are found in the seeds, grains, skins, rinds, and leaves of plants, are designed by nature to protect them from predators, including humans. Once ingested, they incite a kind of chemical warfare in our bodies, causing inflammatory reactions that can lead to weight gain and serious health conditions. I'm not sure if any of that is factual. I know in my own personal life, though, if I eat the wrong things, it screws me up big time. It makes me feel sick, sluggish, and I know lots of people that'll be listening to this probably feel the same way. I mean, what's your feelings about Dr. Gundry's statement that a lot of foods that we eat, they're just engineered to poison us?
Well, if you were to go hunt an animal, animals have legs, they can get away, right? Plants, however, they don't. And so they have to engage in biological warfare. And it's funny, I had a brunch not too long ago, and I have people of all different backgrounds who are very passionate at this. And one of them, Michael Goldstein, who you might find on Bitcoin Twitter, he's very, very much carnivore. And I had somebody else who was vegan, and he was going off on this exact thing about plants, again, having things like lectins to be able to cause inflammation and hurt you in a slower, more methodical manner, so to speak, that you wouldn't be noticing. And it's a long tail. I mean, personally, I think that if I was to give anybody advice, is to get off the standard American diet before even thinking about anything like this. Getting away from all these overprocessed foods. And if you can, eating what's in season and local, getting to know where your food is coming from. I buy everything locally. If it's not in season, I can't have it. And that makes eating cows very easy and great living in Texas. and eggs, and all of that, because they're basically always in season. They might have like a little bit of a slow run in the winter. It might be really rainy, but that's it.
Yeah. So why do you even care about diet? Give me a little bit about your background, who you are, because, I'm fascinated by people who have the level of discipline that you do, and, you just crush legs.
Legs crush me. In terms of why I'm fascinated about diet, so when I was growing up, I was always very skinny, and I got picked on, and people would look at me like, "Oh, you're so big." Well, guess what, dude? Like, I used to be small, and so I started lifting in college. I put on like the freshman 15, very stereotypical, and a lot of men in my family, majority of men in my family are overweight, and a number are obese. And that's not something that I wanted. I was active in high school. I was not heavy by any means. I was very gaunt, in fact, especially going through that weird phase where you're like shooting up and you still haven't filled out. And so I started lifting. I started with very basic things, something known as the Bill Star 5x5, which
Not
is
familiar with that. What is that?
it's a well-known program. It's legitimately just a 3-day split where you or it's just a 3-day program where you're doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and you're doing on one day the big 3 lifts. I believe. I think you do. I don't know. Maybe you don't do all 3 of them on one day, but it's some mix of deadlift, bench, squat, and then they have like seated overhead press, and maybe clean in there as well. And so that gives you like an idea of some of the compound lifts, and that's how I got started. And at that time in college, I didn't really understand. I didn't know much about nutrition at all. That just happened in the past few years. And I was eating, absolute garbage because I was just trying to put on weight. And I was also a poor college student, right? And so I was like going to the gym right across the street is this Wendy's, and then I would just go, spend $10, get a feast.
Yeah.
And
Dollar menu.
Yeah. And so I would that's what I was doing for a while. And I didn't really have any real deleterious like sort of side effects, anything like that. I was putting on muscle, my lifts were going up. And in terms of, in terms of, I didn't really care too much about diet until I felt like I was eating all of the right things, but I was still not really that lean. Now I like sit around like anywhere between like 15 to 20% body fat. And I was getting near the upper limit of that range. And I was really kind of confused. This is like a few years ago, I was eating, and I've been doing this for a long time. So I got into powerlifting, and I was eating, brown rice, chicken, broccoli, maybe some Sweet Baby Ray's, like mornings, oatmeal, banana, egg whites, eating things that like a bodybuilder would eat or somebody who's very clean.
How many calories would that? How many calories would that encompass if a day? So what was your caloric intake for the day?
It depended if it was anywhere between, it could be 2,500 to 3,700.
That's not a lot for a power lifter though. I would have thought it would be more if you're trying to put on mass. I mean, that seems like you're in a caloric deficiency in my, again, I'm tapping into my medical knowledge here. So that would be that would be my estimation.
Yeah. I that was on average, and there were days that I certainly went over, but in terms of, I have a very strange metabolism where I don't sleep that much. And that I sleep like 5 hours a night, and I've already gone through the whole freaking out, going and taking 9 months to like sleep 8 hours. And I've been doing this for years. I haven't seen any big difference in my vitals. I read and this was after I read like Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. And then I also read something that was against it and showed a lot of loopholes and things that he had pointed out. And so in terms of my calorie consumption, and this worries and confuses and very much intrigues a few of my friends as to how it is that I can subsist on so few calories for my size. I still am not certain how that is.
Do you eat sugar?
No. So I will have a cheat day
Yeah, but I'm
every like,
saying though, like every day, do you put sugar in your coffee, or do you,
no,
and
I don't drink coffee. I don't do any,
and what
well,
about carbs? Do you take, are your calories coming from carbohydrates, or are they coming from protein sources? I'm just trying to figure out.
no. So I mean, like I cut out carbs. They're coming from, in terms of just like what traditional things that you would be like eating. And so they're coming from like on a daily basis. Again, like I wake up and my calorie intake is again, like it's interesting because I eat, I feel like I eat a lot, but everything that I eat is just very rich. So
Mhm.
I'll drink like a gallon of milk a day. I'll
Wow.
have like 7, 8 eggs, a cup or 2 cups of whole fat Greek yogurt, um, and then I'll probably have like a pound of ground beef, and maybe I'll have like 4 to 8 ounces of steak as well, and maybe some cheese. But like that's about it.
That's a typical
Um,
day for you.
mhm.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty healthy, protein rich diet. I'm not surprised that you're able to keep that kind of mass on. And then tell me a little bit about like your diet journey. So you probably haven't been eating that way your whole life. So we
No.
talked a little bit about kind of fast food, convenient food, but have you been through all the things like I've been through? Like I was a vegetarian from uh, like almost 18 years actually. So, and I played college football and soccer as a vegetarian. I mean, my football coach at Methodist would be like, I've never seen a football player, that doesn't eat meat, and that
Yeah.
was just me. And um, I'm 6'1", probably 177 pounds when I played college football as a wide receiver. And I think I was that weight when I played college soccer as well. I'm that weight today.
Yeah.
I walk around about 177 pounds. I've been to 200 pounds before. I don't feel good at that weight.
Mhm.
My body fat is right around 15% at 200 pounds. When I'm at 177, I'm right around 10. If I really am suffering, like, trying to do something crazy, I've been down 9, 8%, but I don't feel good. I'm hungry at 8% body fat.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, so I mean, I've definitely tried a lot of things. When I was in high school, I have a strong belief that you can't really criticize somebody until you walk a mile in their shoes. And I was a vegetarian for 9 months, and that was terrible. The main thing that was terrible about it is that I didn't really have easy control over my parents. I was in high school. My parents were not vegetarian. I was trying to be vegetarian, and so
Yeah.
just having to make that work was really frustrating. Um, I was very active. I didn't really notice too much of a difference in energy levels. I didn't really see any difference whatsoever, probably because I was still eating garbage that high schoolers would eat.
Right.
Um, and then like whenever I was eating like more lean, but I was still putting on weight, and I wasn't leaning out like I felt like I should be. I was very confused. And so I tried out the Whole30, which was a nightmare. You learn a lot. The thing is that whenever you try out these weird, kitschy diets, you learn a lot about cooking.
Yeah.
Um, and you certainly learn a bit about your body. I lost like in a month. I mean, like it was an unfortunately like large number. It was like 15 or 20 pounds, which is absurd to lose in a month. Because I'm not like obese. I was overweight at the time. Um, but
Eric, how
like
tall are you?
6'4",
And how much do you weigh?
230.
And how much, when you say you were obese, what was
I
over?
wasn't. I wasn't. I wouldn't. I was not. Maybe by BMI that'd be considered it,
Yeah.
but
But overweight. What is
yeah.
overweight for you?
I mean, like I would say probably 265 to
Right.
like 280.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. I mean, you could
And
certainly walk around at 6'4" or 280
yeah.
and feel comfortable there. I mean, but I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah. So, um, I felt that I learned a few things from that, but the main thing was I should just care more about. I should just be more wary of processed food. So I started veering away from that. And shortly thereafter, I went ahead and I had a few friends who were vegans. So I was like, you know what, I'll give it a go. Veganism was not good for my weightlifting at all. It was terrible. I did it for 6 months, and I feel like that's a pretty good run for something like that. And I was just always taught. I mean, like the place where it hit me most was just in the gym, because I felt like I was always tired. I was losing not only weight but muscle mass, and I was having to like eat. I was having to come up with alternative sources of protein and such, and it was really frustrating.
Did you notice any mental recall or cognitive changes when you were exploring those diets? You know, all of this discussion isn't so much about like the aesthetic results of diet and exercise. For me, it's about optimal performance. So
100%.
everything that, you know, I've talked to you about this discussion today is about improving human performance so you can live your best life and be your best at whatever you're doing. If you're going to be the CEO of a company, start a company, you know, just living.
Yeah.
Because you do so many stupid things in your youth and they catch up with you through your middle ages, and you definitely don't want to be an old guy with a whole list of medicines and medical problems. I mean, that's not the way you want to retire. So, you know, everything I'm doing is with that end game in mind. I want to retire super young and I want to be super healthy, right? So I can just do whatever I want, you know, jump off a bridge if I feel compelled to do it, and survive. So like what kind of mental effects did you notice with some of the early diets that you took?
I would, so you can speak to this, but I would encourage anybody who wants to really feel any sort of mental effects regarding diet is to abstain from the consumption of any sort of processed, like table sugar, sucrose, and then go get yourself and do that. If you can do that for a week, and then go and you have to be very careful because sugar is in everything. I mean, they even put sugar in cigarettes. For those who didn't know, like sugar is in everything. And if you can abstain for a week and then go get something that, you know, you love, like maybe it's like, there's this little place in Austin called Nothing Bundt Cakes, or like whatever it is that you like, some cookie, something decadent, and eat it, and then see how you feel and see how well your mind is performing. And you'll feel that insulin spike, and you'll feel like things start to slow down, and you'll feel like bloated. Like that's not normal. Like you whenever you eat a lot and like you get like the itis, right? Like you shouldn't feel like terrible. You shouldn't, like it shouldn't be a punishment.
So
And
true. When I was in college, I'd eat a whole pizza like it was nothing.
mhm.
If I tried to pull that now, like it would make me feel terrible mentally, physically. The next day I would feel bloated and I just feel disgusting. And I don't know if it was self-loathing or physical, but the itis you're talking about, like I absolutely believe that the consumption of massive amounts of like those processed breads and whatever was in that pizza caused terrible inflammation in my body and retention of whatever, and it made me feel bad. And I know certain foods that do that to me. I mean, do you have that same experience?
Yeah, of course. I mean, like so a few other books that I would, you know, recommend looking into is, I mean, the best one that I've read is Good Calories, Bad Calories by Gary Taubes, who also wrote The Case Against Sugar. The latter book is really kind of a diatribe, and he could have written it in a few pages, but the former is just really great. It's got a lot of good citations, and he goes into a lot of the actual effects that these things, insulin spikes, et cetera, have on your body. How if you're not eating nutritious foods, your body is actually malnourished and it's trying to store things. And if you have a spike in insulin, you actually are allegedly inhibited from being able to fully consume the nutrients within certain foods.
Interesting.
And this is why some people will say that, oh no, you know, how can somebody be carnivore and not, like, aren't they going to get scurvy? Like what's the deal there? I mean, you're eating organ meats, you have plenty of vitamins, but there are trace amounts of these vitamins and various other things that you could be eating as a carnivore. And you just don't need as much because they're more impactful because you're not stymieing your ability to, you're not stymieing the bioavailability of these things with other things that you're consuming.
I mean, do you
Um,
feel like we're best suited to eat meat?
um, I mean, I would like my teeth to be sharper.
Right.
Cause sometimes it can, I mean, like, I
I
think
mean,
that,
in terms of bioavailability, in terms of human performance, in terms of your health and optimization, do you think that you get the best results from eating meat or this like ketogenic diet? Because you and I talk a lot about that, and that's where I've kind of existed. It's tough to stay on long term, but what do you think about the ketogenic diet?
do I think you can get the best results for specifically like lifting? No, because if you look at the people who are best at lifting, they don't do that.
Mhm.
And I mean, they're on anabolics and such, but I mean, they have it down to a pretty rigid sort of science,
And
and they're
and
all,
and I'm not talking about uh, growth hormone or testosterone replacement in any way in this discussion.
yeah, yeah,
This
yeah, yeah.
this is just diet and nutrition optimization. If you want to go to Senengenics and get these endocrine hacks, that's on
Yeah.
you. I've
Yeah.
never participated in that.
Yeah, for me, I'm very surprised at how well keto or carnivore have worked for me, because it goes against this idea of like carb loading before lifting heavy, um, because you feel like that you need to have that energy in the tank. Uh, and I really haven't seen a big issue. It took me a few weeks, I feel, to kind of, maybe it was mental, but it took me a few weeks to really get back on it, I mean this will happen if you have like a sudden diet shift in a big way. As with anything, like a lot of people who go on keto or carnivore will say that like they have like diarrhea or something like that. Like your body is shocked and is adapting.
Dumping
So
sugar was ruthless to me. Like that was one of the hardest things I ever did, because I would put sugar and cream in my coffee in the morning, and I didn't realize it. And if I had an afternoon coffee, I'd do the same thing. When I'm in
mhm,
Europe, I may have 5 coffees a day, and I would
mhm.
have them the same way with sugar and cream. And when I stopped drinking coffee with sugar and cut sugar out of my diet, I felt terrible, like terrible, but it goes away. And now, if I can steer clear of sugar, I don't have any sugar cravings.
Yeah, I keep it out of the house. I just completely keep it out. It's addictive. It's you versus all these PhDs who are engineering food to get you addicted. And so like,
True.
I don't know about you, but I'm not going to win that battle of me versus all those guys, you
Yep.
know? So I'm just going to keep it out of the house, get it away from me, not mess with it.
Yep. Yep.
So
Yeah, and it's funny, the point you made about energy in the gym on keto now, and I'm talking about a ketogenic diet where at most I'm taking 60 carbs uh, a day. The rest of my energy is coming from protein and fat. I found my energy to be fine, even playing soccer. I just felt like I had improved physical performance
mhm.
as a fat metabolizer once I got there, for
Yeah,
real.
yeah, yeah. I completely agree with that. Um, I Yeah, I'm in the exact same boat
Yeah.
there.
And what about injuries? Have you ever faced any kind of sports injuries over your career, and had to overcome them? Because I've got buddies right now who have bagged their ACLs, and their surgeries have been canceled because they're in Europe, and
Gosh.
so they've been kind of doing rehab around the house, but now they've gained weight, and now they're going to go in and have the surgery. So it's definitely going to cause, as you know, problems with recovery and rehabilitation because they've lost tons of strength. I've had both of my ACLs replaced. One was autograft, the other an allograft. I had my hamstring. I think I did my right ACL with my hamstring, and then I used a cadaver graft on my left.
Nice.
But I was really fortunate to work hard in the gym and be in really good shape when that happened. Both non-contact injuries, one playing rugby, the other one playing soccer. But have you dealt with any injuries? And again, like I'm sure you have, but
Yeah,
what have you experienced?
I challenge you to find somebody who's serious about any sport that hasn't, because you're very exuberant and you go all in on it. And I've had 2 herniated discs, L4, L5.
Wow.
I've had tendonitis in my knees. Um, I I've had issues with my shoulders. I'm not really sure what, but I've strained things, plenty of times. I've had issues with intercostal muscle, random like tears and things and that here
Yeah.
and there.
Do you take a lot of over-the-counter medications or
No.
prescription meds, or
Well,
you're not into that?
no, I take one thing, and that is something that well, actually, no, I lied. I take, in terms of an over the counter thing, I take one thing, and that's Adderall. I was put on it at the age of like 4.
Yep.
Not Adderall, but some variant of it. And I tried getting off of it for 9 months, and it is like, I'm addicted to it. Like
Yep.
it's a terrible thing to admit.
Yeah.
Um,
Was it for attention deficit disorder?
yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's highly addictive but if it works for you, I mean, what are you like off Adderall?
Can't get anything done. Not at all. No,
Can't
I mean,
focus.
like I spent 9 months destroying my reputation with some clients that I was working with, trying to get off of it and wean myself
Yeah.
off. And that was just brutal. Because if you can't, you tie a lot of your self-worth to accomplishment or just like moving the ball on various things. And if you can't do that, I mean, it's just cascading. Like it's just terrible.
Man,
So
I say this all the time to people. Like I try my best to avoid doctors, even though I work in that space, to avoid over-the-counter medications, to avoid prescription medications. But if at any time in my life there was something I could take that would make me feel, if I had depression or I had lack of focus or I had, something going on that would fix me, that if I felt like it fixed me, I'd take it. I would take it. I'm not going to go at life, and tie my hands behind my back to prove something. That makes no sense. So people shouldn't feel uncomfortable in any way if they're taking antidepressants or anti-anxiety medications or medicines to focus or supplements for this. Look, this is about living your best life and being the best you can at things. And dude, like, just do it,
yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
It's just frustrating because I personally am not a fan of doctors.
I won't take that personal.
I mean, I've doctors in the family. I'm Jewish. I mean,
Yeah,
plenty
yeah.
of things, right? And so and the reason why is just because a lot of doctors who I know they don't focus on the root. They focus on the symptoms. And how can America get better when you're focusing on addressing the symptoms, not the root of the things? If we were to ban concentrated animal feeding operations and a lot of what we're doing to be able to feed America, and like, I mean, sugar is the most addictive substance in the world. I mean, like, if we were to take actions against that, we would see a huge swath of like improvements to health in general. But going back to like what I take on a daily basis, I take resveratrol and nicotinamide riboside, which is from David Sinclair's company Elysium. And that's a sirtuin precursor, and the resveratrol is a calorie restriction mimetic. And it's kind of a little paradoxical that I take a calorie restriction mimetic while I am like regularly like trying to gain
But
mass.
you seem to be in a caloric deficiency as well.
Sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
And
that is odd because your goal is to gain mass, right? Lean muscle.
not I mean, like, to a degree, not an insane amount of mass. I'm just working up very slowly at this point. Like my goals right now are measured in years. I've done like
That, by the way.
I don't really do I used to do competitive side note. I used to do competitive dancing. I would win on circuits and I would compete.
What kind of dancing?
Country, Western, ballroom, and swing dancing.
That's incredible. I didn't know that. You got to send some videos.
Didn't ask. But I did that, and I got into it because the girl who I was seeing at the time, she was pretty upset by the fact that I couldn't dance. I felt like, what sort of man am I? I can't take her out to dance. She wants to dance. So I started taking dance lessons, got into it, got really into it, started doing privates. Then they said, hey, you should compete, because I have a very, I don't know, sort of addictive or competitive personality. And so, so I started competing, and then it kind of ruined dancing for me. And so in terms of like competing, I've only done like the local gym, like push pull where you just do a deadlift and a bench press. But like in terms of like anything that I'm like aiming at right now, like I feel like it would take a lot of the fun out of it for me, because I'm lifting for me, for my health. It's not for anybody else. And so I think that that's what allows me to have done it on such a consistent basis. Going back to like,
do you think that like powerlifting is there longevity in that? And do you think in the long term, that's the best application of exercise for you? Because, again, I've seen some of the results of powerlifting, and these guys look crippled later.
Yeah. I mean, like so with powerlifting, you're doing, I forget what the word is. People don't move like that. When am I ever going to need to bench press? Like what in real life? I'm a fan of functional movement, and this is where a lot of accessory exercises come into play. And this is kind of what CrossFit tried, and I feel failed to do.
Yeah, you move like a bench press when you're bench pressing.
Yeah, yeah, and so like
you're laying on your back pushing up. It's like not useful.
Yeah, and so like you have these compound lifts, which I just enjoy doing, and that because it comes down to being able to, there's a big difference between powerlifting and there's Olympic lifting. I view Olympic lifting as like kind of like the gymnastics of lifting. If you see them, it's very beautiful, snatches, etc. And then powerlifting, it's more brusque, and they're just trying to get the weight up. Maybe they don't have good form. You'll see like somebody have like a cat back on a deadlift. And I view it as just kind of like a struggle between you and the weight. And for me, that's a good thing to be able to have that struggle. And so in terms of longevity, there's a guy at my gym. He's like in his late 60s. His name's Keith. He's a cool dude. And he's still doing these things, and he's killing himself. I mean, there are a number at my gym, like there are people that are in their 60s, 70s who are still out there deadlifting, squatting, but they're not doing insane weight. And that's another thing, is that like I don't have like really, I have what I think are pretty reasonable goals. Some people might think that like the weight's is heavy, but like for me, it's like I'm measuring things in years. So I'm just doing a very slow progression, not trying to. You have to know the difference between growth and pain in lifting. That's a big thing. And then generally in life, you got to know when you're growing yourself and when you've hurt yourself. And that's another, you asked about injuries, like having a number of various injuries that I can't cover them all because they've all been in passing or this or that. But that's helped me to learn a lot about the human body and what is working for me and what is not working for me. And what is pain and what is growth. So hit me
real quick with some of the best books you've read. You've listed some of them around diet at first. So like what is the diet that you're subscribing to now? And are there any books that people could check out to if they're interested in that diet? So what is the diet that you're prescribing to now? Uh-oh, did I lose you? You're frozen. No worries, hold on. Yeah, got you back. All right.
So there was the Big Fat Surprise, Deep Nutrition. So Big Fat Surprise, Deep Nutrition are both very good, as well as Good Calories, Bad Calories. Those are 3 really solid books. And I took months to get through them, to each one, and they're very dense. In terms of, again, like you just eating animal-based products, eggs, dairy, meat.
I'm a little thrown off by the milk, to be honest. So, I wonder, and I would expect you've thought about it, but aren't you consuming like tons of antibiotics and hormones inside the milk that if you're drinking a gallon of milk a day? I mean, unless you're milking the cow and this cow is like certified grain fed, I mean, how are you avoiding like what I think is just, an absolute, like, I don't even think humans should be drinking cow milk.
I live in Texas, man. We have so many cows and so many farms out here. Like you can go meet your ranchers. Like it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and that's another great thing about living in Texas, that everybody's very friendly and that you have access to that. So I mean, like I said, like I bought a half cow in February, and it like you know where your stuff's coming from, you know what they're doing, you can go out and like check on it.
Yep.
And I maybe that's maybe they're doing something under the table, but I can taste the difference at this point between, I think, which is probably me being crazy and having confirmation bias, but I think that I can taste the difference between an egg from a chicken that's been given like antidepressants or antibiotics or whatever, versus one that's been fed like a good diet of carotenoids, open pastures, etc. And same with meat, because
I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that at all. I bet you can see the difference as well with the amount, you're cooking, which I love. It's not hard to prepare the stuff we're talking about. I mean, you can cook a great steak with a pat of butter on the top of a range, in a pan. Like you don't have to do all this crazy stuff. It's so easy. I mean, a beautiful steak, and the stuff you're talking about, making eggs. You're going to have to talk to me more about the milk thing. I literally think I would just die if I drank a gallon of milk. Like it would kill me.
I didn't say a gallon, I said a quart. There might not seem to be a difference, but there is a huge difference in drinking 1 and 2 quarts.
Yep.
In terms of cooking, if you want to go fancy with the steak, get a sous vide. Like they cost $90. You put it in a pot of water, and it makes it even easier for you, because then you have it cooked perfectly on the inside, and then you just sear it very quickly. It's the people. I mean, like I have people over, and I'll make the same sorts of things for them. And some people, like when I tell them what I eat, they're like, "That sounds very boring." But if it's there's nuance to it. There's so many people that can't even make eggs. Like, come on, man! Like, seriously, you can't make eggs? Like,
right. Like omelet.
Yeah.
It's crazy. All right. So look, love the discussion around diet. I definitely appreciate your discipline. I want to pivot to the end of this. What got you into Bitcoin?
What got me into Bitcoin? So I was pledging a fraternity in 2010, and there's this guy, Michael Goldstein, in my pledge class. And he was really into economics, and I was not. And then in 2011 or 2012, he starts, I think it was 2011. Yeah, it had to be. It was either, I think it might have been 2011. He starts telling me about this Bitcoin thing. I didn't really know what it was. He started giving me all these economics books. He's like, dude, you got to get into it. And I was like, I'm in college. I want to, have a good college experience, mess around. I'm not really interested in this stuff. So I blew it off. And then I was in San Francisco. I was interning in the Bay in 2013, summer 2013. I met this guy named David Johnston, and he founded Factum, and he was really big into Bitcoin. He was telling me about Bitcoin as well, and I was like, it was just a random event, and I was like, okay, this is 2 points of reference. And so I started looking at it, and I saw the Mt. Gox thing, and I was like, okay, whatever, ignore it. And then I heard about, I started working with a healthcare company. The guy before me was a great coder, so I started seeing what project he was contributing to in open source fashion. And I saw Ethereum, and that was in beginning of 2016, very beginning, end of 2015, beginning of 2016. So I started looking at that. I saw like Vitalik speak, and I was like, whoa, like this guy is from another planet. And so I started getting really into it. I started like telling everybody, like, you guys got to get into this. It's the next big thing. It's huge. It's going to be the new internet. And then I found that David Johnston's in my city in Austin. And so I met up with him and started the Austin Ethereum group. And so I was well aware of Bitcoin, but I thought of it as like antiquated. And then I met a number of people. And then I had like a number of experiences with people that were considered like pretty high up in the Ethereum group and the Ethereum Foundation, as well as some members of like core with Bitcoin. And I saw a very big dissonance between the discipline. Ethereum is very amateur and very loosey-goosey, which allows them a lot of creativity and a lot of like open sort of new territory to be explored. Like they're opening Pandora's box, and it's incredible. But Bitcoin, if I had to choose like whose things we're going to be left with, it would be with the Bitcoin core team. And so I mean, that I've known about Bitcoin for a while, but I didn't really get serious about it until and like shift from Ethereum to Bitcoin probably about 1 to 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And that was just because I just didn't, there were so many things that were happening in Ethereum that just didn't make sense. There were all these, like, there was a lot of decentralization theater. Even Ethereum 2.0 technically doesn't make sense. And a lot of people have admitted that, but again, it's this Pandora's box. It's the idea of innovation, getting the ideas out there. And so I totally am a fan of that, which they're doing, because that's great. But in terms of, like, I shifted everything over to Bitcoin. So
I love it. I love it. And, if you don't mind me asking, if you looked at your investment strategy or asset allocation, what percentage of your net worth do you have in Bitcoin?
too much.
All right. That's fair answer. Enough that it would hurt if it doesn't work.
No.
Not enough that it would hurt if it doesn't work. So this is you're speculating.
I'm speculating, but it's too much for speculation.
I got you. Because if I ask that question to Pomp, he's going to tell me, 50, 60, 70% of his net worth's in Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think, personally, I feel like we're beyond, it's not going to work. It's whether the incumbents can suppress it and, stop it from doing the things it would normally do.
Impossible. I don't see that. Unless I had a long discussion with, if the United States wants to go around and bomb everybody that has a full node, like, in the world, like, they can try it. I mean, like, it would be a massive coordinated effort between all these countries. I just don't see that happening. I mean, like, right, we have people. I mean, look at Edward Snowden and Julian Assange, and, like, countries are willing to do things, like, in spite of the United States' best wishes. And so the fact that we have the ability to have these competing interests is what is going to allow Bitcoin to thrive and continue to thrive.
What do you think if the U.S. pulled this with gold, right? I think they made it illegal for U.S. citizens to hold gold. They marked it at a price and said over a 4-day period, you have to sell your gold back to the United States. What if they did the same thing with Bitcoin? What if they said it's illegal for you to hold Bitcoin? You have to turn it over to the government, and we'll pay you $10,000 a Bitcoin for it.
I live in Texas. We have guns here.
I love it. I love
it.
I
like straight up, like, you try and take our guns, we're
right. But I'm sure people felt that way when they were taking your gold, and you had guns then too.
So, I mean, like, right now, we have this powder keg in the United States. Things have gotten worse and worse and worse, and people are fed up, in a big way. Trump is very divisive. We have millions of people losing their jobs. We have this Aubrey guy gets shot, and then we see somebody else who's, like, choked to death by an officer. And so, like, we have a lot of people who are very upset, and you want to poke the bear, but the United States, I cannot see the United States doing that right now. I see the United States as massive, as just the government as a whole is losing a lot of power. Has there ever been a case where they had to push back the tax deadline? Like, I view the collection of taxes as a measure of a government's power. And if they're unable to do that, which we've seen with a number of companies, a number of very large companies, who are, again, seeking effectively tax asylum or benefits in other countries, innovation is moving away from the United States, and the United States is sitting on its hands and just being rent seeking.
Happen. Yeah, that's great point.
I don't see them coming after assets. They can try, but people have options now.
Yeah.
People have options. So
that's a fair point. It's just interesting to see play out. All right, last question. What's your favorite album? Because you're a music guy. I mean, I can see it behind you, and that's we share music all the time. Favorite album.
I don't. It's not a good question because it changes throughout time. I mean, Illmatic was a great album. Ready to Die was a great album. Midnight Marauders was a great album. Secondhand Rumors by Fleetwood Mac was a great album. Carved Tapestry by Carole King, incredible album.
When did you listen to Fish? In college?
I still listen to Fish. Fish is you can't listen to their studio stuff. Like that's weird. I mean, like that's a whole experience though. I love Fish. I can't really say what is my favorite album of all time. I mean, I'm a huge Easy fan. You see Joy Division up there, Jimmy. Like, I mean, what's your favorite album?
I can tell you, it's probably some of the first music I ever got. And so it's either The Police or Run DMC. And those were probably the first two cassettes I ever had as a young kid. So the first Run DMC album was
Incredible.
crazy, right? So
they were the OGs.
Pretty amazing. Like I could put that stuff on today and I still like love it. And also like the Beastie Boys, like License to Ill, like that stuff is just so good. Like if I was at any college party or any place right now, if I put License to Ill on, people would not even look up. They would just be like, that is like,
that's it.
That, yeah, it would be rocking. So same thing with like Tribe Called Quest or Midnight Marauders. You could put that album on and just play it, beginning to end.
It's beautiful.
It's an amazing thing. And I ask, what's your favorite album? Because people don't listen to albums anymore. They're just singles. It's one song, you know?
Yeah. It's, I mean, like, and the thing is that I have these things hung up here because music it's more than just listening. It's an experience. It's an art.
Yeah.
People put time into this stuff. I think that, you know, it might be a little strange, but my favorite DJ of all time, his name was Siva June, and he was killed in a car accident in 2010, which is very sad. But he has a number of albums, one called Modal Soul, which, I mean, I've listened to his entire discography so many times. I mean, it's truly beautiful, hip hop and jazzy sounds. I mean, like that might be my favorite of all time. Just because there's so few things like it. But I mean, like, if you really love music, good luck choosing a number one of all time. Because you said those things for nostalgia purposes, for a big reason. But I mean, like, what's the new thing now? I listened to the new Torah Moy album earlier this morning. Incredible stuff. So.
Very cool. Well, listen, we're almost at an hour. I can't tell you how much I appreciated hanging out with you. We got to do this more often. The food stuff, the lifting, music, art. We got to get into religion at some point. And man, I hope you have a great rest of the week, and I'll talk to you soon.
Likewise. Have a fantastic rest of your day.
Later, man.